Bad Chad Hiltz creates ideas of pure creative thinking, ceaseless inventiveness, and original car concepts. Hiltz is well known for his unique concepts and unconventional approach to car design. He first gained recognition on the reality TV program Bad Chad Customs. But even before Chad Hiltz became well known and started collecting custom vehicles and television cameras, his life had already molded him into the passionate, quirky genius that he is today. On August 13, 1971, in the province of Nova Scotia, a little Canadian town called Kingsport welcomed Chad Hiltz into the world. The vast Minas Basin tides, hilly terrain, and farms around the sleepy, tiny community of Kingsport. Chad grew raised in a tiny, close-knit town, which greatly influenced his ideals of self-reliance, ingenuity, and commitment. Chad was raised in poverty and led an unglamorous life. Chad was forced by his working-class background and ongoing financial difficulties to develop his inventiveness and resourcefulness at an early age. He would be forced to create something out of nothing because of this scarcity, which is one of his specialties in the production of bespoke cars. In the household where Chad was raised, diligence and craftsmanship were highly prized. Doug Hiltz, his father, worked as a car body repairman. Chad became fascinated with cars after seeing his father work on cars by hand. Doug was not affluent, but he worked hard. As a result, Chad learned many of the fundamentals of auto maintenance by observing his father, who frequently restored old cars for very little money. Making do with what was provided was a recurring theme throughout Chad's adult life. Chad wasn't really interested in school when he was younger. He enjoyed sketching, doing manual labor, and disassembling objects to learn how they functioned. While the other children played with sports equipment, Chad could frequently be found in the garage fiddling with everything he could get his hands on. He had a unique capacity to detect potential in everyday items even as a small boy, a talent that would later help him become well known as a custom car designer. One of Chad's early interests was painting. He sketched everything naturally, including intricate mechanical and car designs. His passion for automobiles and his artistic abilities to depict them would ultimately lead him to focus on creating custom vehicles. Long before he ever got behind the wheel of a car, Chad was the kind of child who drew futuristic vehicles and hot rods in the margins of his school notebooks. Chad's passion with vehicles developed as adolescence approached. He did, however, have restricted access to a variety of services. Much like many young people growing up in a small town, he was forced to be resourceful with what he had because he could not afford to acquire pricey tools or auto components. Chad started experimenting, recycling outdated, abandoned components he found in junkyards to make new useful things. When Chad was 16 years old, he developed an interest in cars and bought his first vehicle, a damaged 1939 Ford Sedan. For most kids, just learning to drive would be plenty, but Chad wanted to use this automobile to express his creativity. He tinkered with it for several hours, acquiring new skills and making improvements. This event gave him even more motivation to create custom cars, since it demonstrated to him how he could transform an outdated vehicle into something special and priceless. When Chad was younger, he became well known in his area for his ability to take completely junk cars and turn them into something really amazing. In the end, he gained notoriety for his scrappy method of creating cars. He would take cheap or abandoned parts and transform them into unique works of art. In his 20s, Chad Hiltz began to explore, grow, and discover his commercial potential. While he kept working on vehicles, he looked for other ways to get money. He did odd jobs to supplement his money in addition to working at body shops. But no matter how hard he tried to live within his means, his thoughts would return to cars. It also highlighted Chad's personal troubles during this time in his life. Chad, who was having financial difficulties, had to accept that achieving his goal of being a well-known custom car maker would not be simple. Despite lacking formal training and a solid network of business contacts, he made up for these deficiencies with a strong work ethic and unwavering faith in his own abilities. Because he couldn't afford new components or machines, he came up with creative ways to recycle discarded materials, even making entire automobiles out of recycled materials. Throughout his career, Chad was referred to as Bad Chad for his innovative and aggressive attitude to car development. Chad began to gain notoriety in his area in his late 20s for his distinctive custom car projects. His method was unconventional. He customized his cars with anything from normal materials to strange items he discovered in junkyards. In addition to saving money, He was able to add a unique and striking touch to each car. People took note of Chad's ideas right away since they stood out from anything else being constructed in the vicinity. Chad Hiltz established a name for himself in the local custom car scene by the time he was in his early 30s. News of his unusual techniques and the visually striking cars he was building started to circulate. Chad was able to create similarly attractive cars for a lot less money than other custom car builders who were paying large sums of money for premium parts. In 1999, Chad established Hiltz Auto Co. in Canning, Nova Scotia, a significant step toward his goal of becoming a well-known custom car maker. Chad experimented with some of his wilder ideas with the business. There, he developed his skills and discovered how to make essential components for his own cars out of the strangest materials. Chad's life changed from being a backyard tinkerer to a full-fledged business owner after starting his own venture. However, it also brought with it higher standards. It was not simple to run a tiny business, much less one as specialized as bespoke car making in a remote section of Nova Scotia. Chad's persistence helped the firm stay viable in spite of sporadic setbacks. He established himself as one of the region's most creative custom car builders and kept pushing the limits of what could be done with limited resources. Chad experienced ups and downs in his personal life despite his increasing success in the custom car sector. Raising his son Colton, whom he had from a prior relationship, to become a father was one of the most significant parts of his life. In interviews, Chad has discussed how difficult it is for him to juggle his love of car construction with his fatherly duties. It wasn't always easy for him to strike a balance between wanting to support his son and going after his goal. Chad suffered several personal setbacks during his life, including periods of financial difficulties and self-doubt. In spite of everything, these difficulties just strengthened his will to achieve. His capacity to overcome adversity came to define both his professional and personal life. One scrap piece of metal at a time, he was creating a life for himself and his family, not just cars for them. A crucial turning point in Chad Hiltz's career occurred when TV producers took an interest in his unique approach to making cars. With the 2019 Discovery Channel debut of Bad Chad Customs, Chad's distinctive method of creating custom cars became well known. He showed off his talent to transform cheap materials into beautiful, custom-built cars during the event, exhibiting the unadulterated creativity that had always been a part of his life since he was a little boy. With the success of Bad Chad Customs, Chad gained notoriety and the recognition he so much needed. Even with his recent rise to prominence, Chad has stayed true to his origins. He presently constructs one-of-a-kind cars from his shop in a remote area of Nova Scotia, using the same inventiveness and ingenuity that characterized his formative years. Chad Hiltz, or Bad Chad, from Bad Chad Customs, discusses topics other than cars, including his life with fiancée Jolene MacIntyre, who has traveled with him for a major portion of the trip. Jolene is an important part of his career, both in the public front and behind the scenes, making a big difference in his personal and professional lives. Chad's company, Hiltz Auto Co., is situated in the little town of Canning, Nova Scotia, which is also the place where Jolene MacIntyre was raised. Her knowledge in business management is very helpful to Chad, in addition to her artistic abilities. Jolene is in charge of the business's money and administrative tasks, while Chad is the creative force behind the cars. To ensure that everything runs well, they collaborate. Jolene and Chad are not only in love, but they also work really well together. Jolene took over as the shop's daily manager and was in charge of the show's logistics when Bad Chad Customs first appeared. In addition to being there for Chad, she actively contributes to decision-making and directs the project's path. Her cool-headed, collected demeanor counterbalances Chad's wilder, more imaginative side. Their combination of creative vision and practical commercial savvy makes them a powerful partnership. Jolene's love for vehicles has developed along with her relationship with Chad. She's adopted Chad's approach of making automobiles on a shoestring using unusual materials. The two want to build cars that are not only beautiful to look at, but also demonstrate creativity and innovation. Their mutual dedication to the company and their distinct approach to creating customized cars make them a formidable partnership. Jolene may not spend as much time in the engine room as Chad, but her unseen work is just as important to Bad Chad Customs' success. Jolene MacIntyre is essentially much more than simply Bad Chad's girlfriend. She has a significant influence on Chad's life and their business, assisting them in creating their future empire of custom cars. His modest upbringing in a tiny Canadian town served as the impetus for a career centered on creativity and an enduring passion for automobiles. His early years were characterized by hardship and inventiveness, which helped him become well known across the world as a custom car constructor. When others might only see garbage, Chad sees potential, which is why he can still take something ordinary and make it spectacular.